Okay, so in this video, I want to answer, are your margins stable or are they drifting, month by month? And I want to show that by calculating contribution margin. And the difference between contribution margin and gross margin is that your contribution margin is adding in variable costs. So think of things like marketing costs, but it's not including your fixed costs, right? So it's still above, your net income on your income statement, but for this video, I want to show how to calculate your contribution dollars and then your contribution margin. And so what we need to do is we need to bring in system type and then the invoice amount as long as all of your COGS, including variables, your variable cost. Okay, so to start, let's use the unique function. And what the unique function is going to do is it's going to bring in the list of your system type. And so if you go into the data and you see your system type here, it's going to bring in a unique list. So you're not going to see duplicates. Like you're not going to see, split system twice. So equals unique, go to the data tab and then it's column D and then enter. And then you can see your system type. And then press Control C and Control Shift V, and that's going to remove the formula. And so now you can have this list of the unique list of your system type. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to bring in all of the cost as well as the revenue. So it's all of these here. And the total is just going to be the sum, but we're not going to bring that in because I want to show you how to calculate each of these by system type and then also by month in the second chart. So just press Control C here to copy, and then here you can press Control V. Okay, so first we want to bring in the invoice amount for package unit, the invoice amount for split system, and then so on and so forth. And the way we do that is with the SUMIFS function. And so SUMIFS is going to sum if. So sum the final invoice amount column if the system type is packaged unit or if the system type is split system. And so the first variable, the first criteria here is going to be the sum range, which is, the dollar amount. You could do percentages, you could do anything, but in this example, it's the dollar amount. So that's the first argument. And then the next argument we need to answer is the criteria range. And so we're solving for system type. So what range, where is system type? And that's right here in column D, comma, and then now the criteria one. So which specific system type are we trying to calculate for? And so we can do package unit. And you can see here the final invoice amount is a little over 2 million. And this is, 1 year of data. And then if you want, you can just center this and then you can format it as a dollar by pressing Control Shift and then number 4. And then you can remove the decimals. And so we could drag this down, no problem, and it's working. But the problem is when we drag it across, it's not working. And the reason is because we didn't lock these cells. And what I mean is we need to set this up to where as we drag over column D, we don't want it to be E, right? Because the system or the system type is in column D. So we want that to stay the same always. And then B3, we want it to stay the same as we drag across, but we want it to go to B4, B5, B6 as we drag it down. And then for E, we do want it to change. If you can remember in the data set that everything was over 1. So like we do want E to turn to F whenever we do parts materials. And so the way we do that is we need to lock the cells. And what I mean by lock is you just need to put a dollar sign to absolutely, it's called absolute or relative referencing. And so if you put a dollar sign before each, well, for the column, it's always going to be locked. But as you drag it across and top to bottom, it won't change. But for this, we want to put the dollar sign before, meaning as we drag it over, we want it to stay the same. As we drag it up and down, we want it to change. And so you want to lock the column, essentially. And then once you do that, you can copy, and then you can highlight all this and press Control V, and now you can see everything is calculated. And so now you can see the invoice amount by system type, your materials cost, your labor costs, right? Everything. And so now we can get, total COGS, and this is including variable costs. And this is just going to be the sum of these. and then you can press Control C and then paste. Okay, so now you have your contribution, let's say contribution margin dollars. And this is going to equal your invoice amount minus your COGS, your total COGS. And again, copy, paste. And then the next thing we want for the chart is we want a contribution margin. Let's just center this. We want a contribution margin. I'll paste this here. But instead of $1, we want a percent. And the way we do that is we need to take, you could take this and divide it by the invoice amount. And then you press Control Shift and the number 5, and you can get your percentage. And then you can just either double click here. You can also drag it down. And so you could do it, you could do this. Okay, so I'll pause here for just a second to let you catch up, or pause the video. I know I go super fast. I try to keep these videos short, but there is it takes a bit of time to set these problems up. And so now what we have is we have the invoice amount by system type, and then each cost sort of broken out by system type. The variable cost is going to be a summation of all your different variable costs, and you might have that data sort of scattered across different spreadsheets. But if you can find the sum of those, then it'll be easier to calculate this. Okay, so the next part is we want to create a line chart, a simple line chart. I'll show you right here. Okay, so not a line chart. We want to create this bar chart here to where we can show the contribution margin by the system type. And so what we can do is we can highlight this and then press Control and highlight this. Go to Insert, Recommended Charts, and then you have right here your chart. So we can do contribution margin percent by system type. Okay. So we have that here. If you want to add the values, you can just click and then do data labels. That's completely fine. And then here, if you wanted to, yeah, we can just leave one decimal because the variance between all of them isn't really that much. I mean, it's less than what, 1% from the highest to the lowest. But if you wanted to change the percentage down here, you can double click. When I say percentage, I mean the decimals. Click number, and then you can remove change this to 0, or change it to 2 if you wanted. And you can also change the bounds. So if you wanted it to be, say you had a higher variation, you could do, say, 40 to 50% or 40 to 60 or however you want to do it. But okay, so now we have this. So the next chart we want to do, make this a little bit smaller. So now what we want to do is we want to create the same thing, but by month. So we want to create this chart here. So invoice amount, contribution, and then the percentage. And so what we can do here is we can do the month and then just type in January. Drag down until you get to December. Let me zoom out a little bit. And then, so now we want invoice amount. So I'll just copy from here, but it's essentially invoice amount and then contribution dollars and then contribution percent. And if you want this file, there's a link in the description. You can download it or just shoot me an email, and I'll give you my email here in just a second once I finish this. Okay, so the invoice amount is going to be here in this column, and so we need to get the month out of this date, and I'll show you how to do that. I'll just delete this, but we're using the text function. So equals text, comma, and then with quotations, type in 4 M's for the month, and you'll get sort of a long month. If you do 3 M's, you'll get the 3-letter month. But let's just do the full month here. Okay. So now we want to do the same formula, essentially, the SUMIFS, but instead of doing it on system type, we want to do it off of month. And so, and this time I'm not going to bring in all these costs. I'm just going to sum the invoice amount and then the contribution margin. So equals SUMIFS, and if you remember, the first argument is going to be the dollar amount. And in this example, we want the invoice. And then now we have the criteria range, which is here, right? The month. And then the cell that has the month is B22. So you have that. So again, Control Shift and the number 4. We can center it and remove that. Okay, so the next thing is we need the contribution dollars. And what I'll do, I'll show you sort of a little trick, but here we know it's in column M, right? And in the invoice is in column E. So all we have to do is we can just copy this. We can copy this and we can change we can change E to M. So delete that M, and then you semicolon M, and then I'll show you another little trick. If you just go in this cell, go over, hold the Shift key, go over, then Control Shift down, and then Control D, it'll autofill. That way you don't have to, if you don't like using the mouse. I'm not a huge fan of using the mouse. And then if you click here, you can highlight this to get the same formatting. And then finally, the contribution percent is going to just be equals this divided by this. Control Shift and the number 5, and you got that. We can add a decimal and then double click down. Okay, so we have this set up, super straightforward. And then now what we can do is let's do a combination chart where we have month, contribution amount, and then contribution percentage. So highlight this, hold down the Control key, and then highlight these two. Go to Insert, go to Recommended Charts, and it's right here on the top. But I'll show you how to redo it, just in case it's not there. So all charts, click on all charts, go to Combo, and then right here where you see line, just click secondary axis. It'll automatically create this axis here. Click OK. I'll make it dark. And so, yeah, that's how you do that. I mean, if you want to add the values, you can. So the thing is, if you go here and click data labels, it gets really noisy. So let's not do that. And then if you want just the contribution dollar amount, you can click data labels here. Still a little bit noisy. You can, click and you can move. You can move a value, however you see fit. And then if you want, let me just delete these. Well, that didn't work. Let me delete this. And then if you want just the percent value, you can click on the line and then do data labels. So that's another way to do it. I'm not going to do that for either one. Let's find the title. And then we can call this contribution margin. We can do by month. I'm not going to add percent or dollar sign because it's sort of showing both. But anyways, that is how you can calculate that. And so again, contribution margin is going to include your other variable cost, as to where gross margin does not do that. And so if you have any questions about this video, just let me know. Shoot me an email, questions@databoards.io. If you want this file, there's a link in the description. If you can't find it, then again, just shoot me an email. If you can just tell me the video name as well, just so I can make sure to get you the right file. And other than that, if you have any questions on your data, if you want an extra set of eyes, looking over your stuff, again, an email is good, or there's a form in the description to where you can just fill out that form. But if none of that stuff is going to be interesting to you, then I will see you in the next videos. I'm going to be doing 160 KPIs for HVAC. It's 20 by department, 8 departments. I might do 10 departments. I don't know. I'm talking to a couple HVAC clients to see if it's valuable. But anyways, that's all I got for this one, and I will see you in future videos.